Welcome to another one of my painting demos or tutorials. If you want to paint with me, grab your paints. To begin painting, I always get rid of the white of the canvas. It's a linen canvas, but you can choose whatever. You can paint on white. So what did I do? Basically a very light wash. I placed some of the darker blue on the right hand side, a lot of the cadmium yellow, very diluted, and a little bit of the red, which is alizarin crimson with a touch of viridian green, so it's not that red. And that's how I began. So grab your paints and be ready to paint with me. Let's begin. I made a mixture that is a purple, dark purple with ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. If you're using acrylics or if you're using oils, you can do your preferred purple with many different combinations, but try to make it trending towards the darker. And then I placed two lines for reference, a vertical line, so go ahead and do it, and a horizontal line. More or less see where I'm placing them, so you can orient yourself where you're placing the figures that we're going to be working with. The next thing I did was a mixture that's a purple but with more alizarin crimson. It looks a little bit like burgundy or maroon. Place a triangle and just make sure that you realize how close to my vertical line and to the top of the canvas this triangle is. That's important for placing the shapes. Then you place a vertical line. I did it a little bit at an angle. You can do it straight. And then place this line as I'm showing it. These other lines that are horizontal lines are going to be important for perspective. You will see what we're painting pretty soon. Place the other line. Then just brush over a little bit with that mixture of the violet, maroon, burgundy color. And then you start filling up that area with a burgundy color in a transparent wash. It's hard for me to do it with the PowerPoint, but you will see basically you're using a brush as I am, so just brush it over. This is more or less what I got with the brushes, so that's what we should be doing. Don't feel that you need to be very precise at this point, but you can see the reference lines that I told you that help us place the shapes where they have to go. Let's go on the next step. Create a violet that's more ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, a little bit darker, and then you brush over on that area of the canvas. Then we're going to have a little fun with this viridian green and alizarin crimson. You can use phthalo green, turquoise, basically a dark turquoise. First line, you can see it's a line that's going to give us some perspective. And it's important that you note where to start and where to end that line. So more or less place it correctly, place the other line, and then a darker line that has a little bit of an angle. The next one follows with also an angle and a partial line. And finally, you do like a trapezoid in there. So if you're with me, what you should be seeing right now is something that looks close to this image. So far, it's an easy development of this painting, and I hope that you will enjoy soon. They say that every painting goes through an ugly stage, so don't expect at this stage you're going to see something beautiful, but it will come. Just be patient. For the next step, let's make some color mixes or color choices if you have more colors than I do. You can choose light blue, or make it with ultramarine blue and titanium white, and also another light blue that is more greenish blue. So if you don't have that in your set, you can make it. I use viridian green with a touch of alizarin crimson and titanium white. I use the cadmium yellow straight from the tube. You can use any kind of bright yellow that you like. Try to avoid lemon yellow because that's a cold yellow. Try to use more of a warm yellow. And then I made a mix of a gray, which has titanium white, and then the three dark transparent colors that I have in my set, which is viridian green, ultramarine blue, and a touch of alizarin crimson. So let's begin. Very rough brush strokes on the sky. So you start painting the blue of the sky, leave the greenish tone for the bottom closer to the horizon, and then the cadmium yellow goes on the sky and the water reflections. I did it very, very light, but we're going to build on it. But that's where you place your yellow. And the gray is used to start placing some of the areas where you want to have the clouds. So that's how you begin. On the next step, we're going to go on a very fun piece, which is the following. With the same colors that you have, we're going to add cadmium yellow with a touch of alizarin crimson, which is an orangey color. You could also use yellow ochre. And then I also used the cadmium yellow with vermilion. And this is a little bit more warmer orange color. So pay attention to the sky. So what you start doing there is placing some shapes that could look like clouds. Remember, the clouds are darker on the bottom and lighter on the top. So whatever you want to place the, the shape of a cloud, just put brush strokes, remembering darker on the bottom, lighter on the top, using the same colors that you have. Have fun, play with it. And also use, as you can see here, the cadmium yellow is now applied with more strength, and I also used it with white. So you can see the brush strokes horizontal on the sky, and just make sure that you're not mixing the yellow with the blue because you're going to get green. These have to be applied. If you're using oils, make sure that you don't mix them. If you use acrylics, it's easier because they dry very quickly. So just place your blues, and then when you place the yellows, they won't mix. So that's the idea. Put them side by side to create the impression of clouds and sky that's really very bright because of the sunrise. Now for the fun part. You have a very dark area of purple in there. So to start creating the shape of the tree, which is in the springtime, so there's not much of a foliage, what you do is you paint the sky behind the tree. So just keep in mind the shape of the tree that you want, and you are painting the sky. So it's basically just dots of sky. Wherever you put a color of sky, you can continue that behind, or let's say on top of the tree and the lamp post. So just make sure that you follow where you want to keep the purple. But that purple is the purple that we painted before. You're not painting the tree, you're painting the sky behind the tree. I think you can see it better here where there's very notable vertical, or let's say diagonal, just brush strokes with a small brush, and just dots where I wanted to open that tree and make it look like it's a more of a branch with less foliage, and the sky you can see from behind. In the bottom area of that shrub, you are going to use the blue because in that area the reflection of the water is more blue, and that's where you use blue, which is a mix of the blue that has a little bit of the green in it with a lot of white. So that's, take your time, just decide where you want to have the shape of your tree. And as you can see, in some areas I covered the red a lot, but then you can follow more or less where the tree branches are insinuated by not painting on top of them. So have fun doing this part. It does take time, but it's really fun how you start seeing the tree appearing just by painting behind the tree. For the next step, just make sure that you're keeping the mixtures that you have been making. And we're going to make a few more colors. We're getting more bright, so we're going to use more of the ultramarine blue and titanium white, cadmium yellow and alizarin crimson, cadmium yellow and vermilion red, and the vermilion. You can see here, I wanted you to show you how the vermilion, which can also be a bright red, naphthol red, or it could be cadmium red, whichever bright red you have. I put it there just for you to realize that you use it for mixtures, but we're not going to use it direct on the paint. Let's pay attention to the lamppost. The lamppost was your original triangle, and you just shape it a little bit. We are seeing it from, let's say, from the bottom, so we're seeing looking up to it. So just make sure that you have the perspective correctly. The brightest areas of the lamppost are alizarin crimson, which is a burgundy kind of red. It is not the vermilion or cadmium. I mean, you're painting the way that you want to, but if I put it very bright, it would look weird. And I thought I liked this color better. You don't use it in all of the lampposts. You use the darker mixture that we had with alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue from before. That's the one that you're going to be using, the darker one for the shape. And then the little, it's not true white, is white with a little bit of cadmium yellow for the accents or reflections that you want to use on the lamppost. But that's basically, it's not very difficult, it's not very precise, just have fun with it and shape the lamppost. The next thing that you do is start working on the reflections in the water. And even though that orange looks really bright, it's cadmium yellow and vermilion red, mixed with the cadmium yellow and then cadmium yellow and white. The cadmium yellow and white is the lightest area of the reflection in the water. There's no pure white on the water. So work on the water, have fun with it, and just mix the areas of orange and then the brightest area that you want. Also work a bit more on the clouds. I had them a little less defined, and every time you work on the clouds, remember that you need to work behind the tree and the lamppost. If you're making them lighter or darker, just make sure that you follow with dots, 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 or brush strokes. And that's the way you start creating it. Also, for the image in the back on the landscape, the gray areas behind the tree need to distinguish it from the blue of the reflection of the water and the orangey on the sky when you look on the right hand side of the painting. So behind that bush, you are creating the image of the tree by painting what's behind it, and you just need to make sure you follow the perspective lines and the colors that you've been using for those areas behind the tree. Now that trapezoid that I had you paint, you realize it's going to be a bench on the Harborwalk. And you use that Viridian Green with ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and white. So this is going to be against the sunrise, and I like to put it more on the blue side of the gray. I had fun with the back. You can make the cityscape the way you want to. You can make it less. I mean, these are buildings, but you could actually make it more like just trees or mountains. But just realize that the area where it's getting more of the light, it's the cadmium yellow and vermilion red. It's not cadmium yellow alone. It's an orangey color, and it is placed right on top of the grayish purple that we had in the back. So just brush it over. Do not mix it, but brush it over so that it looks that it's getting all that sunlight. Have fun at this stage. Take your time and continue painting a bit on the water and the sky to get to the next step. So what this next step was basically I worked a bit more on that lamppost. You can leave it the way you had it before. I did work a bit more on that. Then I actually felt that the area on the sky was too dark. And you can see that I actually painted branches on top. They were not there before. I hope you can see the difference between painting the branches by painting what's behind versus painting the branches on top of the sky. I personally like better the first option. I should have painted darker on that area, and I should have done the same as the other. But I thought this was useful to show the quality of those branches doesn't look as crisp as the others. I really love painting what we call the sky holes. So basically what you're painting is the sky behind the dark color, and that's how you are shaping the tree. But I decided that was an area that needed more branches, and I painted them on top. So you can see the difference. And if you're painting along with me, you can either do that or leave it with just the sky. I worked a bit more on that area because it was too dark. And sometimes that happens with when I'm painting, I see things um, light, but I paint them too dark. I needed to make it lighter because it was not a sunset. It was really a sunrise, and it was lighter than what I was painting it. So I made those clouds. It doesn't matter. You put layers and layers for acrylics and oils. Actually, that looks better. So just build on it and continue making the sky color the way that you like it. The bench, I did open that little area, and by opening the area again, painting the reflection of the water, the very bright yellow of the water between the bench back and the little wall on the harbor walk, that's the way that you create the shape of the bench. And the railings are done with a light touch of color, but also remember is painting the water on top of the darker color that we had before. So again, have fun with this. Make sure that you see how I was painting the sky and the clouds and the different colors that I added. Make it your own painting. Have fun. I call this Sunrise by the Harbor Walk. It's an oil on panel. Thank you very much. The last piece of information is I have the materials that I used. They're not only at the end of this video, but also I put them in the description box. And if you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you. I use water-soluble oils, and to dilute the oils, I use the Artisan Winsor Newton linseed oil. I don't use this that much. Most of the painting is just done at the beginning with water because they're water soluble to create the first washes. And as I apply more and more layers, is basically the paint direct. I only use the linseed oil when the paint is not grabbing the canvas as it should, and then I put a little bit of this linseed oil. The paints that I used, the colors that I used are the Lukas Berlin 20 ml set. This set comes with titanium white, lemon yellow, cadmium yellow hue, yellow ochre, vermilion hue, alizarin crimson hue, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, viridian hue, and burnt umber. I really like this set. I love working with the artisan sets also, but I've been using the Lukas Berlin lately.